Welcome to Golden Blue, everybody, home of the college football fan. And don't forget about the checklist. Hat check, sunglasses check, Pepsi check, notes check, sources check, and thick skin is a check. And don't forget to sing gear to represent your team and yourself in my background. Send it to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina, 29657, and get yourself a shout out. On to the next video. Whenever tax time rolls around, we will be extending our shelves all the way over to the door, so there will be more room. In case you're wondering, these are the teams that we don't have represented for the mini helmets. Tulane, SMU, Navy, East Carolina, Memphis, Tulsa, Temple, South Florida, UTSA, North Texas, UAB, FAU, Rice, Charlotte, Oregon, Utah, Washington State, Arizona, Cal, Stanford, Colorado, Louisville, NC State, Wake Forest, Boston College, Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Penn State, Maryland, Indiana, Rutgers, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, James Madison, Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Old Dominion, Troy, South Alabama, Southern Miss, Louisiana, UL Monroe, Texas State, Arkansas State, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, Liberty, Sam Houston State, Jacksonville State, Notre Dame, UConn, UMass, Ohio, Buffalo, Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio, Kent State, Akron, Toledo, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Ball State, Central Michigan, Northern Illinois, Wyoming, Colorado State, New Mexico, Fresno State, San Diego State, San Jose State, UNLV, Hawaii, and Nevada. Yes, this will indeed be a Get It Gang video. If you're not familiar with what the Get It Gang is, it's basically a name that I came up with for the group of people that leave video ideas in the comments section of my videos. So if you think you have a good video idea, just leave it in the comments section of this video and I just might use it. On top of that, some people leave comments not intending it to be a video idea, but I like it so much that I use it for a video. So keep that in your head when you're leaving comments in my videos. And today's Get It Gang member that left a video idea was from Bruce Mercer. He says, "Go to Blue Dude. I know you aren't MacGyver." We were having a conversation where he was asking if I was that conspiracy theorist that I use a lot, MacGyver. I assured him I was not, and he's letting me know, well, I really knew that you weren't. You have enough ideas on your own and other people pumping ideas your way that you don't need to invent somebody fake. Yes, he's calling MacGyver fake. I agree, but it is interesting. You can just post your own new ideas. Just joking with you on that. Sometimes you present gold, even if I know it's garbage. Thanks. And sometimes you present junk. Tough but fair. But some of the gold is real gold. You keep it interesting. As long as aliens don't enter the picture, you will have every scenario possible covered by the time it happens. Except for one. And this is where the video idea comes in. And that is the ACC expansion. Stealing from the Pac-12 and the Big 12. You still don't have that one. And no matter what Tar Heel says, that is going to happen. Very, very interesting. And you are correct. I haven't talked about ACC expansion ever since I talked about West Virginia and Notre Dame going to the ACC, and that bit me in the rear end. But you know what? Let's go back to that since you suggested it. Yes, it is possible that the ACC could be planning on expansion. Or on the flip side, they could be planning on those 8 teams voted to dissolve the ACC, 4 teams to the Big Ten, and 4 teams to the SEC. I've talked about that enough. Let's focus on the ACC actually expanding. What would they do? What would this look like? What teams would they go out and grab? I think they would do this in phases. Phase 1, they could go out west, and I am hearing that they're in talks with the 4 teams I'm about to mention. They could go out to the Pac-12 and grab Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. Yes, I've heard from multiple sources that the ACC is in fact talking to Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. Those 4 teams would actually fit into the ACC perfectly. Remember, the ACC does like academics. I know, bringing in Louisville kind of threw that out the window. Kind of throws the excuse of, well, we didn't bring in West Virginia way out the window. But besides Louisville, they are a great academic conference. So Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford would fit in quite nicely. Now, the logistics, that would be a little tough because you'd have the majority of the ACC on the east side of the United States, and then you have these 4 other teams on the west side of the United States. But we see it with the Big Ten. They went out and got USC and UCLA. So it's really not that far-fetched. There is a precedent with the Big Ten. Staying with phase 1 so they could get those 4 teams or get these 4 other teams. Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. And of course, those 4 teams have great academics as well. And they're just a little bit closer to the ACC. Maybe those 4 teams would make a little more sense for the ACC. Or maybe those 4 teams will be a part of Phase 2. Let's move on to Phase 2. Phase 2, the ACC could actually focus on the Big 12, getting West Virginia, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Those brands would make sense, and I know the West Virginia academics. But like I stated earlier, when they brought in Louisville, that kind of rubs out the excuse of academics. I think West Virginia would be a home run get for the ACC You already have Pitt. You already have Louisville. You already have Virginia Tech. You already have Syracuse. You already have Boston College. You already have the Miami Hurricanes. All rivalries of West Virginia. And Boston College has turned out to be a dud for the ACC. You bring in West Virginia? Yes, Boston College fans would be interested in watching Boston College versus West Virginia. So you'd be getting more revenue out of teams that are already currently in the ACC. So it's not just gaining value from the teams that you're getting, but it's getting more value from the teams that are already in the ACC. Phase 3. This goes back to the 4 teams that I already mentioned. So whether they get Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford in Phase 1, or Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado in Phase 1, whoever they don't get in Phase 1, they could be Phase 3. So Phase 3 would be, going back to those teams, Washington, Oregon, Cal, and Stanford, or Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. Whoever they don't get in Phase 1 can be a part of Phase 3. And finally, Phase 4. Going back to the Big 12. You get Texas Tech and either TCU or Baylor. Or maybe you don't get Texas Tech and you get TCU and Baylor. Either way, you're getting a chunk of the Pac-12 and you're getting a chunk of the Big 12. Now, I don't see this happening. I think that's too much for the ACC unless those 8 teams do vote to dissolve, but 6 teams remain in the ACC, and that's when they go out and get these teams from the Pac-12 and the Big 12. So you're looking around a 20-member conference minus the 8 teams going to the Big Ten and the SEC. So it is possible, it is plausible, but certain things have to happen in a row. And like I said, with this expansion, it also has to happen in steps. It's not going to happen all together. No. If that's what you're saying, then no, that's not going to happen. If this is going to happen, it will happen in phases. Phase 1. So let's lock this down. Not an either or type of situation. Let's lock this down, okay? So Phase 1, they go out and get Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. Phase 2, they get West Virginia, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Phase 3, they get Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. And Phase 4, they go out and get TCU and Baylor. Sorry, Texas Tech, I changed my mind. But who knows, if they're still in the mood to grab some more teams, they could grab a Texas Tech and a Houston to kind of capture the state of Texas. That's not a bad idea. So Phase 5 could be Texas Tech and Houston. Or you go back to Phase 4 and you get Texas Tech, Houston, TCU, and Baylor. You get the picture. How confident that I think this would happen? I'm not confident at all. In fact, I think it's more possible, more plausible that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 do a merger instead. And I did a video on that earlier today, and it worked out really nice. A 20-team super mega conference that could compete with the SEC and the Big Ten as far as size and possible revenue. I don't think they would quite get the revenue that the Big Ten and the SEC are getting, but maybe like a 50 or 60 million per team per year deal with either ESPN or Fox. Yes, that is very, very doable and very, very possible. And if you look at all the moves that Brett Yormark has been making, it kind of points in that direction. I heard that the Pac-12 were in brief talks with Fresno State, but on top of that, I heard that the Big 12 also started talking to Fresno State. Now, I don't think the Big 12 would actually add Fresno State, but if you cut the Pac-12 off from all the teams that they're wanting to get, then they have no options. So their only choices are the Big 12 comes and raids them. They get the 4 corners, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, perhaps also aiming for Oregon and Washington. Or they could do the merger. And like I mentioned earlier in the earlier video that I made, this go around, the terms would actually favor the Big 12. So you better believe if the Big 12 and the Pac-12 merge, Brett Yormark will make sure that the terms favor the Big 12, not the Pac-12. So it's interesting to see how that works out. But for this particular scenario, yes, I think it's possible. Maybe plausible, I don't know. But the first thing that would happen is those 8 teams vote to dissolve. They go to the SEC and the Big Ten. And then the ACC backfills by going to the Pac-12 and the Big 12. So y'all in the comment section, number 1, do you think ACC expansion could happen? Number 2, if ACC expansion can happen, do you think it happens the way that I explained? Number 3, do you think it's more likely that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 merge? Or the ACC expands, or possibly merges with the Pac-12. That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.